And I can remember, in my mind, I think it's days after I started carnivore. It might have been a week. It may have been a bit longer, but in my mind, almost immediately, I got up from the sofa and it had all gone, and staggering. Even now, but then for weeks and months afterwards, I used to get up and down from the sofa just for the joy of getting up and down from the sofa. And every time I kind of can't believe it. If I stood up now, no pain there. I think, it's amazing, and literally nothing.
Tony, how did you find carnivore?
I had heard about it through keto. I was looking at recipes for quite a few years, actually, looking for recipes on YouTube, and they would be keto carnivore. So I kind of understood over that time that that it was an extreme version of carnivore. I've been carnivore. I mean, I'll go back into the history. There's a bit of history yet to come. In fact, I was reminded the other day that a friend of mine who had told me 3 years ago that she was going carnivore, and I was very impressed and said respect, but I couldn't do it. It's too extreme for me. She came back and says, "You'll eat your words, Tony," and I have. So that was quite amusing. And then last July of 2023, I was talking to my stepmother who wanted to go onto keto, knew the results I was having, and needed to lose weight and was having pain, all sorts of pains and things. So we were talking here, just in front of me here, and I was persuading her. She tried it, but kept on slipping off it. Her idea of keto was keto with cake, and keto with cake isn't the most successful version that I've heard about. And in that conversation, I said to her that that keto isn't extreme. You want to try carnivore. And at that moment, now for a while, a month or more, I'd been stuck on keto, and I wasn't losing weight. I mean, I knew why. I was having too much salad. It always made me laugh that the reason why I wasn't succeeding was I was having too much lettuce. and in fact, another of my addictions was whiskey, so I was having a bit of that as well. Anyway, so I was talking to her about carnivore, only knowing that it was an extreme. If you want extreme, that's extreme. I didn't know about lion and so on then. And at that moment, it was like a light bulb moment. I thought, blimey, I can do that. That's my way of breaking the block on keto. And all I've got to do, I thought at that time, it was much more actually, but all I had to do was give up lettuce. So from that moment, I didn't buy anything that wasn't carnivore, but I still had stocks of keto. I still had vegetables and salad in the fridge, and I'm not good at throwing away food. So from that moment, I was basically using up. I had things like olives and various pickles and mayonnaises, full of seed oil. So I had. So over the next week, and then it was almost petering out after a week, I was using up. I didn't know anything about keto flu or anything of that stage at all, and I didn't suffer from it. I had sort of a week or so in, I guess, the diarrhea problem for 2 days, and that was the only thing I had. I launched into. So from that point, actually, I've got from that point, I didn't even know about anything about Dr. Ken Baker or Anthony Shafee or any of that. You or anybody at that point. I ordered online and I got this book, which I absolutely recommend. Carnivore Cookbook there, and I learned everything. It's got everything about the history and the ancestry and I read that a couple of times. It's a really good book. So that was my introduction. And then I was obviously searching online and found all of you basically. Ken Berry probably was the main one that gave me. There's Kelly Holly, Kelly Hogan, Jordan Peterson, and Michaela. um, and Tammy and so on, and I very quickly learned. I learned actually fairly early on that the biggest change wasn't the losing of the lettuce, it was the dropping of seed oils, because that changed. There's so much had seed oils in it. All my mayonnaises I used to have, sauces, and it's amazing how it gets everywhere. So learning that made the biggest difference. So from that point on, I have been carnivore and absolutely, loving it. But there's a longer story. So I won't cover every year, but it starts over 50 years ago. I'm 67. So over 50 years ago, I was putting on weight. I was at school. I used to, in those days, different to now, even from the age of 12, I had a 2-mile walk to the station, 4 stops on the train, and then another mile walk up from the station to the school every day. And outside the station at my end was a Wimpy bar, and I used to pop in for an international grill too regularly. I remember that. And the other thing was that outside the school, we had good school lunches, fish and chips and all that sort of thing. But occasionally, a Chinese restaurant opened up, and back in those days, they had a set meal. So that was like sweet and sour pork, chop suey, and egg fried rice. 50 pence. 50 pence it was in those days, about 40 cents or something. So I'd have that occasion, and that gives you an idea of the sort of thing I was eating, along with crisps, etc., etc. And so I was putting weight on, and when I left school, actually when at the end of the school, I took my exams. I passed all that I wanted except for maths. I failed maths, which is an interesting story. So I then decided that, this is 1973, 73. I decided that I needed to lose weight, and that I was going to do it. I mean, talk about cold turkey. I decided the best way to lose weight was to stop eating, and I just stopped eating. And I would go for 3 weeks regularly. And I must have done it 4 or 5 times at least. 3 weeks with no food. After the first few days, the feeling of lightness and elation, I mean, it puts carnivore to shame, I've got to tell you, even though we now feel fantastic. See, you're all bubbly, but going 3 weeks on a fast, it was fantastic, and I lost weight. But the interesting reason I mentioned the maths is I failed maths, so therefore I needed it, and I had to retake it 6 months later. When I was taking it, I was on a fast. So I hadn't eaten for a good 2 weeks before I had a maths. It was called O level, a maths exam. Well, from failing it, i.e. an F, I got A plus. My mind was so clear. As I sit here now, I can feel how I felt, which is even, it's a lightness and almost like a druggy thing, but it was marvelous, and I did it. I did it a lot. Manu, to tell you, talk about on-off switch. I know you're an on-off switch person, and Kerry on Homestead How is an on-off switch. I am very much an on-off switch. So my treat when I came off 3 weeks of eating, of not eating, was a bargain bucket of KFC. But the other funny thing was that I did once try to go beyond 3 weeks, and I couldn't do it. But once also, I forgot to drink as well, so I didn't have any water either, and I passed out. I remember getting off a train one day and I simply fell over, and I had to sort of hold myself along the fence to get home to have some water. That was stupid, but I just lost the habit of putting anything in my mouth. I mean, so that's an idea. So that's 50 years ago. I won't go through every year. So from there, I yo-yoed. I mean, I've got a life of yo-yo dieting, a whole life of yo-yo dieting, and so on those days it was just low calorie, and I went on things like Slim Fast and all the things at the time there, and then I'd lose weight, and then of course I'd come up again. and that carried on for quite a while. And then I decided that then 25 years ago, I found Atkins, good old Atkins, and I had the orange. I don't know if you remember the orange cookbook and all the story of it. I took it on board completely. It was very controversial, which I loved that. It's just like carnivore. I went on it. Another friend of mine was also on it, so we did that a bit together. And that was very good. But again, the problem with keto, or with Atkins, sorry, let's call it Atkins. Atkins was a particular problem because of all the Atkins snack bars. I particularly liked Atkins crisp. They had crisp breads, and so I would buy loads of their crisp breads, and then I could put something of cheese or smoked salmon or ham or pate on top of it. And then, of course, there's the little bars, and the whole idea almost is you try to get around everything and replace everything. So I was successful when I was on it. Then, of course, the switch would come in, and I'd come off it. And so, and of course, when you come off it, excuse me, you tend to put more back on than you lost. So I then decided, this was about 12 years ago. I'd go on I heard about a proper medical diet. It was actually a business local to me here that just focused on a medical weight loss. You'd go along weekly. You'd have massages weekly to make sure the skin you didn't get wrinkles and things. And it was basically sachets, like drinks and smoothies and things for breakfast, and then soups. Various soups, quite nice they were actually, and then you had one meal a day, which was basically broccoli and fish or chicken. I did that for quite a while, and I lost massively. I lost a good 12 inches around the waist, 14 inches even around the waist, went right down to slim. I still got all the clothes, and I'm working through them, which is fantastic, going back down. And I went down to a 34 waist from a 48 waist. I know, and people tell me I look gaunt and things. I'm sort of in between now, but I kept that off for a long time. But you can't keep having sachets and broccoli and fish. So I eventually slowly it all went back on again. But over some years, I've got to say, and in that time, Atkins had changed into keto, and so eventually, as it was going back on again, I'd switched back onto dieting, and I was back onto yo-yo dieting, and I'd lose weight and keep it a bit under control, then it would go back on again. I mean, to give you an idea of the addiction, this is carbohydrate addiction, and I didn't understand carbohydrate addiction in those days at all. You just ate. I mean, my daily work routine of eating. So I'd get up. I'd probably eat about 6:30ish and have toast. Then I'd get to work about 9 and have a couple of croissants, or maybe a McDonald's sausage and egg McMuffin. Then lunch would be 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock dead. At 12 o'clock I had to eat, which I'll come back to because it's an important thing that is one of the benefits of carnivore. And if I didn't eat at 12 o'clock, I'd start to get irritable and hangry. So 12 o'clock would be quite a big meal. I was working right in the middle of London, so I could walk to Chinatown and get myself Chinese, there was so much food around that, so I'd eat quite well at lunchtime. And then 2 or 3 o'clock would be time for another snack, which would be sort of like a bar of chocolate and crisps and things, or maybe even another sandwich. Then I get home and have a big meal in the evening, and then snack until I go to sleep. So so that is that's obviously when I'm off. And when I switch on to keto, I was fine then, but I still had the 12 o'clock problem that I had to eat at 12 o'clock. And so then that really brings me then up to present day when where last July this was. So I've now been on keto today 6 months. 6 months today.
Oh, carnivore.
On carnivore, yeah, 6 months carnivore today. And I haven't, apart from Christmas Day, where I was with a carnivore friend, and so we decided that we would break it. And in fact, my brother is not really on board, and we were at his for Christmas Day. So so there wasn't any left, but we decided we'd have a few Brussels sprouts. She left one, couldn't cope with them at all, and I think I had a carrot and bread sauce and roast potatoes I had, but that's just on Christmas Day. I mean, if I go back a year to show how naughty things are, so over Christmas, which actually was a month, because I did drink again, and I can drink when I drink through December. Doesn't put weight on for me, but it stops weight loss. And I only really cheated for Christmas Day. Boxing Day, I was here, so I had everybody here on Boxing Day, and I did a carnivore buffet with a few things that would be okay for non-carnivores. And then I suppose we for a few days in between that and New Year, we went a bit more, slightly more keto. Things, we had olives and various dips and things. But I only put on 2 pounds over Christmas this year. If I go back to last year, so that's Christmas 2021, I decided I was on keto then. So the addiction, the problem with keto, I think, is like, for people like us, is that it's like an alcoholic being allowed one shot of whiskey, or if you're giving up smoking, you're allowed 1 cigarette. I mean, it's not sustainable, is it? You can't do it because you haven't given. And I didn't understand that at all. So anyway, Christmas last 21, I decided I would come off keto for Christmas, and Christmas. But the problem was that Christmas started at the beginning of November, because everyone's, So at the beginning of November, I started buying things for Christmas, and so they were in the house, all the snacks and crisps and everything, basically, biscuits and so they were here. Well, that was the end of that then, wasn't it? So I had 2 months of off, and I put on 2 stone. So that's what, 28 pounds then. So I started off at the beginning of last year, going back onto keto after the New Year, at 325 pounds roughly. I'm thinking American now. I talk about things like pork rinds and not mince, but ground beef and that sort of thing, which is quite amusing. But and I'm now down to about 240. So I've lost over 80 pounds. But there was a lot of stagnant periods within that. Not much apart from Christmas. So as soon as I went carnivore, I stopped drinking because I can switch it off, no problem. So I stopped it then, and then a little bit over Christmas, and then it stopped again now.
So just to clarify one thing, you said there was a bit of a stagnant period there with your weight loss over the last year. Was that during keto or when you were on carnivore?
Apart from Christmas, I've had no stagnant periods really on carnivore. So this is on keto when I was having too much lettuce and a bit too much whiskey as well. And not just lettuce. I mean, I would make up about that.
Interesting combination. Interesting combination, lettuce and whiskey.
Yeah. Well, I use lettuce as a bit of a joke, but I actually made every day for a long time the most elaborate salad for lunch. I mean, about 20 ingredients. I would just enjoy creating this all these different combinations of flavors, and whether I'd have mostly chicken. Interesting that keto is low fat as well, really. I mean, it shouldn't be, but I was only eating, I didn't understand fat. I wasn't fat adapted or anything like that. So I was mostly eating chicken, and I'd have these flavored chickens where, you can buy slices of tandoori chicken or barbecue chicken or peri peri chicken or whatever. And I'd have that with this elaborate salad and I collected all these, I read all the labels, and I worked out all the best mayonnaises with all different flavorings, peri peri again, and all different flavorings of mayonnaise. And this is exactly what Kerry was saying the other day on Homestead How. I mean, he's a fantastic person. I love him. and he was saying, it's not the salad you enjoy, it was the dressing you put on it. And he's absolutely right. So I make these fantastic salads every day, which is remarkable, really. Yes. So yeah. So I'm back fully on it now. I absolutely love it. I'm not tempted with anything. You could put anything in front of me. Somehow I've just switched off because I have this on a switch. It's off. Luckily, I don't have a sweet tooth. I've got a savoury tooth, and I wouldn't have thought it possible for me to give up bread. I didn't think I could give up, what I used to eat at all. But bread was the one. It was the one problem, and I haven't. I kind of think, well, one day I might have bread again, but sometimes I give myself a chance. Say, oh, well, I'll break it and have some bread. But I don't. I don't fancy it. In my mind, I don't even like the flavour now. All my flavour is on ribeye steaks. But so that's where I am there. And apart from the weight loss, so weight loss is good. Weight loss is the main thing I went on it. But of course, listening to in particular Ken Berry, but all of them, actually, Shafi and you, and all the ones I listen to quite a lot. Actually, the biggest thing which amazes me. So I used to love walking, and I used to walk for 2 or 3 hours a day every day, right the way through the 80s and 90s. Through the 80s and 90s, I live out in the sticks here, and I work in central London. So I would get the train into the outskirts of London and literally walk all around London before I got to work, and then I'd walk back afterwards. And I loved it. The problem I had is that I've got flat feet, and what was happening over time was that I was throwing all my joints out. So I had terrible pain in my ankle. This is my right leg mostly. My ankle really flared up. My right knee, and my right hip. And I've been in pain for years. I've literally got a collection there of walking sticks. I'd often carry one with me. I couldn't get up from the sofa without pushing myself up and hobbling for a bit. And sometimes it would throw myself out. You'd catch it and it was really bad. So I'd have a walking stick by me all the time. I quite like my walking sticks, but and also I've got a trapped nerve on my left leg, so I had sciatica, and that would come on if I stood for overly long, or if I walked, and I had to take that into account for years. Events I would do if I was at exhibitions or having to stand up, I would have to take that into account. And everyone knew it, and I'd have to have strong painkillers. I've got a friend who has terrible backache, so he had some particularly strong painkillers. So when I was in a very bad way, he would give me one of those, and that would take it away. So that, but I just thought that was it, and then it was going to get worse. I was literally thinking, even in keto days, that I was going to at some point need a hip replacement. Those things are in your mind. Not only that, but I also had very bad arthritis in there. This is my right hand. So funny, it's all on the right side. But that was very, getting worse and worse. And again, I just took it for granted that I would suffer that, and it would get worse over the years. And I hadn't really. Well, I'd seen some programs at that point about YouTube about all the good things that can happen, but these things happen to other people. I didn't expect it to happen to me. And I can remember, in my mind, I think it's days after I started carnivore. It might have been a week, it may have been a bit longer, but in my mind, almost immediately, I got up from the sofa and it had all gone. And staggering. Even now, but then for weeks and months afterwards, I used to get up and down from the sofa just for the joy of getting up and down from the sofa. And every time I kind of can't believe it. If I stood up now, no pain there, I think, it's amazing. And literally nothing there at all. Hadn't had a single twinge of sciatica in there. It makes me think back. I noticed other things. For example, there's lots of things, but I hadn't even thought about it. But at this time of year, I'd have very dry hands. They'd be quite painful through winter. and I'd have a sort of Norwegian hand cream. So this time of year I would be, well, I haven't had any of that, no dry skin whatsoever. And the other thing that went, I used to have a flicker in my right eye, and I thought that was going to get worse with age. That went under keto, and I hadn't thought about it. I'm just, when I'm trying to think of all the things that have got better, that came to mind, But the dry hands, I've only just thought of. So all those have absolutely gone. But it's interesting because if I have something that shouldn't be in the diet, or if I push it a bit, I can get the twinge back. So I don't know, some months ago I tried a gherkin. I don't know what they're called. They're called something different, I think, but a little pickle thing there.
So pickles, right?
Yeah. So I thought I'll try one of those. Well, instantly I get a feeling in my ankle again. I even had cheese is interesting. I don't have cheese, but I have it occasionally. I had a bit at Christmas. Certain cheeses seem to affect me, others don't. Hard cheeses seem to affect me, but things like brie and so on don't. Well, I tried and all this is Christmas again, sort of pre-Christmas, but all these little sort of hors d'oeuvre taster things, which is salami wrapped around sort of shards of cheese, and it was a hard cheese, and that immediately I got the feeling that I shouldn't be having it. I got, again, the ankle started. So it's a remarkable diet because you can see exactly what's wrong. The body tells you immediately.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it absolutely does. So other benefits, well, they're massive actually. I'm going to have a quick look because let's have a look there. The ankle one is quite interesting. So I went on holiday. I was camping by the sea, and I went in swimming every day, which I wouldn't have done before carnivore. But my ankle massively swelled up. I mean, it was huge and painful. So that massively came back. So I was talking to my carnivore friend, and she said that the only thing she could think of that would cause that was dairy. So I thought, well, I'm not having any milk or anything. I have black coffee. I've liked black coffee for a long time. Through the keto years, I just gave up and I've got accustomed to black coffee. So I was actually having no dairy. Again, butter to me was for spreading on bread and toast. But when I started carnivore, of course, butter comes into it. You've got the BBBE, and I was very. I'm still not 100%, but I was very confused in the early days about the ratios of fat, protein, and things. There's lots of contradiction on there. So I started, as soon as I started carnivore, I thought, right, I need to up my fat. And so I was having up to half a block of butter a day from no dairy at all in keto days. And so when she said, it must be dairy, I thought, well, the only thing I'm having is butter. And I was literally having, I'd eat blocks of it, and I'd have it on I cook my breakfast in it. I'd have it melted on steak. So I thought, oh, maybe it's butter. So I stopped butter immediately. Within a day, the ankle had gone right back down again. So from that, of course, I've discovered now that I can't have butter, which is a shame, but it's not the end of the world. So
it's great that it's so easy to work these things out, though, right?
Yeah.
Because you've eliminated everything.
Absolutely right. The elimination diet. The body literally tells you, no, don't have that. And of course, we're all different. So we're all on a journey trying to find what it suits us. I had no idea of anything about food apart from stuffing it in my face and enjoying the taste before at all. No knowledge. So that was a big thing, actually. To discover. So I don't have butter now. I cheat a little bit. In fact, I regard myself, I think, I don't know if you said it, somebody was saying that if you have things like spices and coffee, and it's called a dirty carnivore. And I like that. I'm a dirty carnivore. So I have, I do have some spices still. I do have coffee, although I've reduced that right the way down to a couple of sort of espresso caffeines first thing, And even that, I understand you're supposed to wait a bit, but I get up and I want it. Apart from that, I have much less now, but I have decaffeinated coffee. I still have that. Coke, by the way, I was addicted to Coke, Diet Coke, and I have carried on having Diet Coke, and I literally stopped it a week ago. And it was actually, I was listening to some of your interviewees, and I finally sort of said, no, this has got to stop. And I just stopped it dead. So I was able to just switch it off. And I've still got loads of cans in the fridge, so that's the end of that. But I haven't had one since. I'm now on water.
And have you noticed any difference in that week?
Well, I felt that I felt better immediately afterwards. I literally lost 3 pounds from being a bit stuck. So on that day I stopped, I lost 3 pounds. I sort of go up and down a bit. I foolishly weigh myself every day, and I shouldn't. So I'm going to stop that because I'm on I'm on a weight loss trajectory. But within that week, I go up and down. It doesn't worry me particularly because I know I'm going to go down again. But it would be probably better for me to understand if I just weigh myself weekly. But the Coke, yeah. So I'm happy now without Coke. I won't go back on that. I've got addicted to sparkling water. I'm actually drinking more of that. So that, yeah, there you are. Yeah, this is our Buxton water over here. So yeah, I do love that. And I don't intend. I know you've given up coffee, but you've been doing carnivore for much longer than me. I am having less. I can't imagine getting up. I couldn't do what you do and have hot water. What we need to do is people to invent things more. We need to get big enough so that it's worthwhile. These companies, like having sparkling beef broth or some sort of morning drink that you can have.
Caffeine substitute or something.
Yeah. We need more product. It would be nice if, for example, if we had those keto bars they have in America over here. We haven't got any of that. My snack is, which I carry around just in case, are pepper armies. I have pepper armies and pork rinds, if you like. We have a pork rind here called crispy strips, which are delicious. So I have probably a bag of those a day.
What's a pepper army?
Pepper army is a mini salami. So mini sealed salami. It's mostly pork, but it does have a few chemicals and seasonings and things in, naughty ones, but I would say not much. Doesn't seem to affect me, and I only have one, occasionally two a day if I'm out. I keep them in the car. I put them in my pocket just in case I get peckish.
So actually, on this topic, like day to day, how are you eating? So you have your coffees in the morning, and then what happens from there?
I have my coffee in the morning, and then I have bacon and eggs. I had bacon and eggs all through keto. I had bacon, eggs, and mushrooms. So what I've done now, so I've obviously cut out mushrooms. I now have more eggs. I have and I have no milk, so my scrambled egg is different. I actually call it scrambled omelette because I don't put any milk in, of course, or any cream or anything. It's simply whisked eggs with a heaped teaspoon of salt, and I whisk that up. So it's basically a scrambled omelette. Then I have bacon, and there are so many different bacons. We have so many bacons over here. It's different, every other day. It's different types of bacons I'm trying from butchers or different supermarkets and so on. So our bacon, and that is normally could be 4 to 6 rashers depending on the size of the rashers. And I will have a bratwurst sausage. I used to go to Germany a lot, and I like those. They're quite pure. So I use bacon, and the bratwurst is cooked in the air fryer, magic bit of kit, and then a scrambled egg in a nice little fry pan there. So that's what I have for breakfast. And then, and I didn't plan this. This wasn't as if I'm trying to hold myself back. I'm not hungry until about 5 or 6 in the evening. And that wasn't a I don't want people to think that you're forcing yourself not to eat like you do on every other diet. I literally now don't. I'm not hungry at all. Nowhere near hungry at 12 o'clock, which was my hangry hour. And that That's remarkable. Now, I might, if I'm at home, I might have a packet of those pork rinds or pepperami or something about 2 or 3 o'clock, maybe. But I'm not hungry. It's just that I'm sitting here with a coffee. And then in the evening, around between 5 and 6, I have mostly ribeye. I am a ribeye addict. I was thinking of joining the RSA, which is the Ribeye Steak Anonymous, where we all sit around talking about our addiction to ribeye steaks. And I get my ribeyes from the same place as Paul does on UK Carnivore Guy online, and they're remarkably cheap. They're not as good as ones at twice the price, and so I buy mostly the ones I buy are from Lidl, which is one of our sort of budget supermarkets here, and they do some lovely ribeye steaks. And you've got to find the best ones with lots of fat on. And if I go to the butcher, then they're a lot more still. So I occasionally have that. I might have a story on that later, but that is. And so I have that. I have a ribeye, and this is not every day. So this is probably 3 or 4 days of the week, and I'll have a burger patty and 2 or 3 sausages. So that's my evening meal. Occasionally, I might put an egg or 2 on it as well. So that's my evening meal, and then I'm full up, and I don't have anything until I get up and have breakfast. I normally have breakfast between 8 and 9. I haven't had it yet today. Whereas I used to get up and be hungry. I used to eat, almost a second thing after getting up. Now I can go. I mean, once before Christmas, I didn't have breakfast until about 2 in the afternoon. And I'd been to the supermarket before that. You don't have those hunger problems anymore. And so in between the steaks, that meal, which is probably my favorite, I have chicken wings. And chicken wings was actually probably my favorite when I was on keto as well. But in those days, I'd buy chicken wings from Lidl again, which were coated with things that now I wouldn't have, but nice flavorings. It might be hot and spicy or rotisserie they did, and I basically just stick it in the oven, and they're delicious. Now I still have that probably once a week. I'll be happy with twice a week actually, and I've got it tonight. And all I do is I dry them off and then season with salt and pepper, quite heavily with salt and pepper. Sometimes I'll put a bit of paprika or peri peri or something on it. I even have some hot sauce, which is very pure, which I dip on occasionally. So that is one of my breaks, and the other one, just to break up the week, is salmon. So I often have a fish day where I have a load of salmon, and with that I'll have scrambled egg again, usually. So that's a full meal there. But I don't want people to think that a carnivore is boring, because the reason why we have lots of ribeye steak isn't because we're forced to eat it. It's because once you're sort of fat adapted, meat adapted, it is just the most delicious food. And I have mince. In fact, I've got this new mince one now, which I got it from Lauren and from Paul as well. I had it on his, where we have sort of like an extruded, almost like a bird's nest type of mince. It's how you buy it in blocks over here. And so you simply cube it into sort of 1-inch cubes, roughly, a bit bigger than that, and season it, and then it goes into the air fryer, 190 for I think 16 minutes. Turn it halfway through, and you get these wonderful crispy. So I buy a pound of that, put it in the air fryer, and you've got these lovely crispy snacks. And I'll have that probably with egg. So that's another meal.
That sounds amazing.
It's a lovely, yeah.
But just to play devil's advocate, right? So I'm, a regular dieter. I've been yo-yo dieting all my life. Let's say I'm watching this video and I'm thinking, well, I'd like to lose all this weight and get all these health benefits on carnivore, but this sounds really boring.
Yes.
Right. If I was eating my, third of a bowl of pasta every day for dinner, I'd be like hungry, and I'd be so bored, and I wouldn't be looking forward to my dinner every day. So how can you possibly look forward to what you're eating?
I first of all, as I was saying, it's not boring. I can have, when you think of the scope of what you can have, anything from any animal, eggs, but I mean, it is huge, and I'm looking forward. I mean, through the summer, my taste will change. I'll have more fish, and I've got all sorts of things. For example, I've got some scallops in the frozen scallops in there, and I take those out and I wrap them with streaky bacon, and they go in the air fryer only for, I don't know, a matter of minutes, really. They are absolutely delicious. I'm not going to restrict myself to anything. I'd have anything more than that. But the other thing is that you've got to experience it to understand that your entire way of thinking and your diet and your body changes. So that you're not hungry, and B, your taste buds. I mean, so one of my other addictions, I'm addictive again, it was smoking, and I now vape. I do vape, and I was having the fruity flavors. I quite liked all the various blackcurrant and apple vape liquids. Since going carnivore, I can't cope with it. I can't have any of those. So I just now have pure, just tobacco flavor. All my sense, and it's not as if I want to do that. It's just a natural thing. I am just naturally now not wanting sweet flavors. I have got in the fridge there. I'm just going to turn this very slightly. I've got in the fridge a whole host of food. I love buying food. I'm addicted. In fact, that was my problem. This is another addiction. I'm addicted to buying food. And so, I mean, for example, last week, I went to Lidl again, and they were having a Hungarian week. And so there's all these lovely Hungarian hams. They have a sort of smoked pork pork belly. So they do a smoked pork belly, which is boiled, I think, but smoked. Absolutely delicious. So I've got that in there, and I took that when I was out yesterday as a snack. So I slice it thinly. So I'm always trying all these things. I still love going around supermarkets and looking for ingredients, not ingredients so much, but different types of fish. I mean, over Christmas, goodness, we were having all sorts of things, all sorts of salmon mousses and mackerel dips, and I mean, there is so much to find out there. And that's without starting to make things. I mean, I haven't even gone on board. I mean, that cookbook I showed you, I've done some of the recipes in there, but only a fraction of them. So I've got all those to explore yet. I never go hungry, and I'm always excited for food. So I love food, and carnivore allows me to love food. I am absolutely not bored. I mean, if I took this to the fridge now and showed you what I've got in there.
To be honest, you're a very good advocate for this lifestyle, because how would you describe it? The energy, or the just the feeling that comes through the screen is like, this is
Yeah,
we talk
this
about,
is
I'm
what
addicted
it's
to
like.
shopping, and it's
Yeah.
like it's very infectious. And
Thank you.
so so just thinking about in the UK,
Yeah.
recently, the last couple of days, I've been watching some documentaries on YouTube about people who are suffering in the UK, like from being obese.
Oh no.
And I learnt a new term as well. So I'd heard of morbidly obese, but I was introduced to a new term in one of the ones I was watching, and it's super morbidly obese.
Oh,
And it's
really?
like, it's got to the point where we're adding
Yeah.
adjectives, like
I know.
we're going to be giving out medals soon. It's like, um, it's getting to a ridiculous point when it's like morbidly obese is not the worst thing. And so, like, what do you just as someone who lives in the UK, what would it take to try and convince someone who's in a situation like that to give carnivore a try?
Well, I've got quite a few stories on that. And actually, would you mind, Dave? Sorry, but if I just want to cover a few of the make sure that I covered everything, the benefits, and then because I've got so many stories of
Sure.
friends and things there. So fatty liver. So that my doctor found fatty
Mm.
liver last year. I haven't been back yet, so I will I will go back and hopefully have that tested halfway through the year, and I'm expecting that to be gone. So that was one of the reasons why I went on. Obviously, there's more energy and a clear mind. Indigestion. Oh, I used to get terrible indigestion. I used to have to keep a bottle of Gaviscon by the bed, and that's gone totally. It had mostly gone on keto, but not quite. But that's gone completely. Blood pressure. Now, this was one of my main things, in that I had quite high blood pressure, so I was on blood pressure tablets, and on carnivore. So I was in the high 140s over 80 something. So my doctor put me on tablets, and I followed. I was talking to my carnivore friend. I've got quite a few carnivore friends now, and she said, "Well, just come off them," and so I kept them for a while. And as I was going down, I've stopped those completely, and I'm now down in the early 120s over 60 something, and I without tablets. So I've stopped those completely. So they've been really good. And I wanted one story about, because I was saying how I absolutely love shopping. So I remember shortly after being a carnivore, not when I started, but in the first few weeks when I was starting to feel the benefits and feel so good about it, I went shopping in the supermarket, and I felt like an alien. I felt like, and I was thinking to myself, you don't realize, but you've got a carnivore in your midst. And I'm walking around seeing what people are putting in their trolleys. I mean, shopping, like everybody says, shopping is so simple now, although I make it more complicated, but that's purely through choice because I love it. It's so simple, and my fridge is practically empty as well. Yeah, I just wanted to mention stop statins as well. Statins I stopped as soon as I heard Dr. Ken Berry talking about the woes of statins. And I thought, well, I don't need those. In fact, I remember my doctor when she said, "Do you mind going on statins?" And at that time, I didn't understand anything. I thought, well, if the doctor says, I might as well. But as soon as Dr. Berry said, they're dangerous, so I stopped those. So I'm not taking any tablets at all. So I'm now going to come on to friends and family, because they've been a hell of a journey, and it's been quite fun, really. So this is where I would talk to. I've talked to a lot of people. Everybody knows I'm carnivore, and so if I run through family, the only one problem is my brother, who thinks I'm destroying the entire planet with cow farts. And so he's not on board. In fact, we spent Christmas Day with him and my carnivore friend as well, and he wouldn't bend at all. He knows I'm carnivore, and he wanted to stick to the ration of how many slices of turkey, and so we did. Anyway, break it on there. My son, he suffers badly from anxiety, so I've told him all about it, and he just said he couldn't give up Guinness, so that was the end of that one. But remember I mentioned to my stepmother that about keto, and she was struggling with keto and cake and potatoes and things as well. Keto and potatoes is a bad mix, well, she's now gone full carnivore, and my father phoned up probably a couple of weeks ago and said he wanted to go carnivore. He's 92. So at 92, he said, look, and he gets really annoyed with having pain. He said, why should I have pain? It's not fair. I said, you're 92. Anyway, he's now gone full carnivore, and I've had to help him through and up his meat. All he did was cut out vegetables. But I said, well, you've got to replace that with with more fat. So I've told him all about So for a meal, he would have had a hamburger patty and some potatoes and vegetables. So all he did was cut out the potatoes and vegetables and sit there with a plate of one patty. So anyway, I helped him with that, and also increasing salt, and he loves salt, so he was happy with that. But he's lost 10 pounds, over 10 pounds now probably, as well, and his pain is reducing. At 92, so I'm quite impressed. So he lives in Denmark, and I'm going to visit him in a few weeks' time, which will be interesting. So that's handy, because the problem with Denmark is they have these delicious light crusty breakfast rolls, which I can never resist when I'm there. But because they're carnivore, so we'll have eggs and bacon for breakfast. And my brother's coming with us, and so he's going to be the sort of the odd non-carnivore out, you know. So that's family. Now, friends-wise, and obviously I've got my carnivore friend, which we talk to most days. You know, we support each other on which is nice to have. I've now found that I've got another friend of mine turned carnivore a few weeks ago. A friend of his went carnivore, and he'd heard about it. So because it was actually a work colleague went carnivore, so he said, "Well, I'm going to go carnivore." So he went cold turkey, and simply said, "Right, I'm going carnivore from now." And I spoke to him a week or so later, and he wasn't really suffering. I said, "You've got to watch out for carnivore flu." And anyway, a few days later, he phoned me, and he was having the worst carnivore flu. So, any recommendation if people want to start carnivore? Please, you know, stage down through keto. Just step out things over a couple of weeks at least. It is worth doing that. Or if you are an on-off person like Glenn is, then do it, but suffer for a few days. Well, probably a week or so. It can go on longer though, so it's best to stage it down. But he was telling me a story which was quite amusing about his butcher. He has a regular butcher near him. It's about half an hour from me, and he went after he turned carnivore. He went in there and announced it was a Saturday full of customers and butchers, and he announced to them all that he'd turned carnivore. And it turns out that one of the butchers was also a carnivore. They're spreading all over the place, you know. And so they talked about carnivore, and this butcher said that what he did every day was to have a little bit of raw calves liver. So that was his daily routine of having some raw calves liver. So he cut off a bit for a friend to have, and he had a cut himself, shop full of people, and he cut too big a bit off. So they were gagging. They were trying to chew this raw liver in the shop there. All the customers were in hysterics, and the other butchers. And I've been there since and had a chat with him. He gave me some raw liver as well, but I didn't take it. But they do a killer. I mean, I bought a ribeye steak from them. Expensive, but it was to die for, I've got to say. So, and it's still cheaper than eating out. And you know, when you think about what you can have when you go into a butcher's, I mean, you know, to talk about a choice, there's a huge array of choice. And you know, and I go in there and I try one or two different things, and I will carry on doing that. But the core will always be ribeyes because, my goodness, they're delicious. Yeah, so that's that. So this is, you know, inspiring other people. So I was at quite a few parties and things before Christmas. All my friends know I'm carnivore. So so a few of us meet always for a meal up in London before Christmas. They know I'm carnivore, so they booked a steak restaurant for me, Flatiron Steak. So that was nice. So I was able just to have steak on that. That was good. Now I had a big party. So we had a Christmas get together, all the old boys from my world there. There's about 30 of us, and they all know I'm carnivore. And but my ex-business partner, good friend, he is totally on board with carnivore because his son-in-law, who's in his 40s, I guess, he's carnivore, and he's carnivore for building muscle, and he absolutely, you know, is a carnivore to the core, but he doesn't need to lose weight. He's just basically using steak and carnivore diet, because that's another thing, of course, that hasn't happened to me yet, but it will. When I've lost more, I will start to do fitness things. Even now I'm walking all over the place, which I couldn't have done before. So he's on board. So he's explaining to everybody there. We're on a long table having Christmas food, about how good carnivore is. So that, you know, makes credibility to the whole story. And there's lots of my friends there. They some younger than me, but mostly older, and suffering from all sorts of things. And a lot of them say, well, they, you know, even though they've got all these pains and they don't really accept it. But I say, well, you know, don't take it from me, as long as you know about it. If you or any of your friends have any pains and suffer, I mean, it can be anything from, you know, cancer through diabetes are very, very common, or skin disease, everything I go through. just think of carnivore and look up people like Ken Berry and so on, and your channel, and all the stories of how people have benefited. Multiple sclerosis stories. That blindness one you were talking. There's incredible stories out there, and you can believe it. It happens. It is the case, and it's, well, maybe I'll talk towards the end, but the logic of the diet, which I started to learn in this book, is it's not complicated. It's not extreme. It's the opposite of extreme. It's the most opposite of extreme you can have, actually. So anyway, I've talked to all these people around the table, and a lot of them, I'm sure, will they all accepted it. They just didn't think they could do it. But some who are suffering, and also, of course, now I've only just learnt this in the last 6 months. There's friends who I know that I could have helped. And people recently. I went to a funeral 2 days ago, and basically it was dementia, but it had a heart attack in the end. But you think all these people I know that have gone through, that if I know what I knew now, not that they would have accepted it, but you could have helped, that you could have felt that you could help people. So that was excellent. And then I went to another bigger party a week or so later. Some of them were there, but there was much more there. But my business partner was still there. So I can't stop talking about carnivore. So he was saying that, but I don't overdo it. I've given up the whole gospel. I stop when I feel there's a kickback. But he was there again talking about his son-in-law, loving carnivore and gaining all this muscle, which I'm aiming for a six-pack again, of course, which I haven't had in my life. But that'd be nice. And there were a lot of people there. So I was talking to people with diabetes, overweight, and so on, friends I've known for decades. And I'm sure a lot of them took the message home, and I'm sure some of them are now on carnivore and hopefully benefiting from that. So that's really good. I was really good. I was drinking Coke then. So that night I had nothing but Diet Coke, and they were bringing out all these little meals of like mini curries and mini fish and chips and many things. But one of them was sausage and mash. And so all I did was take a sausage off the top of the mash. Same thing I did at the funeral a few days ago. They had sandwiches and cake. But they had some nice beef sandwiches, so I basically just took the beef out of the sandwich, and that was perfectly okay. So they've been good experiences. So I've got lots of support and more carnivore friends. I've got another butcher close to me because I love going to. So there's so much to do with carnivore. I've been to all the different butchers around. I've still got 2 or 3 to go, and I found some of them are very receptive. And you think if I was in marketing. Well, I was, but I would think, oh, carnivore, that's a good way of promoting my business. I mean, you're never going to attract vegans, are you, to a butcher's? So you might as well go whole hog and say, this is the carnivore community. We've got carnivore website over here, which lists butchers. And it makes common sense to put yourself on there and promote yourself to the carnivore. Hopefully, as we go along, and it grows and grows, and it's definitely growing. I mean, I'm finding out about more carnivores every day. So it's definitely growing.
That's it's awesome that it's at this point, and it feels like it really is gaining momentum.
Yes, well, I feel really honored that I'm at the beginning. I feel so lucky to have found it. I feel it's like a fate, a type. It's meant to be, really. Yes, it is growing.
And so, Tony, if people want to reach out to you, do you have Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or anything for them?
I don't, I'm afraid. YouTube is as modern as I get doing this, so I'm just too old-fashioned. But I will. What I'll do is when this goes out, I'll look at all the comments underneath. So if anybody has any more questions, then I'll go through and I'll keep going on that. Carrying on for a bit of time. So I'll keep looking at those comments, and if anybody wants to ask a question, then I'll get back. I'll answer those.
I really appreciate that too, and I'm sure everyone watching the video will too.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, Tony, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, and thank you for all you're doing. It's wonderful to hear all the stories. I watch them all.